All right, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood exams out there, the IELTS speaking test. Now, if you're getting ready for it, I bet you've heard all sorts of advice. But what if some of that good advice is actually, well, hurting your score? We're going to find out. So let me just ask you this straight up. Do you think you need to talk nonstop? Fill every single little silence and just talk as much as you possibly can? It's a really common idea. A lot of people think that's the secret. But what if I told you that could be a massive mistake? Seriously, it might be the one thing that's actually holding you back from getting the score you really want. So, in this explainer, we're going to tear down all those myths. We're going to look at the cold, hard facts using official guides and actual test examples to show you what examiners really want to see. Let's get into it. Okay, first up, myth number 1. It's all about the examiner, the person sitting right across from you. There's this massive myth that they're basically just a robot, right? A passive question reader who isn't even really listening to you. And you know where a lot of this confusion comes from? All those mock tests you see on YouTube. I mean, there are thousands of them. And they usually show an examiner who just asks a question, then kind of zones out while the candidate gives this long speech, and then they just jump to a totally new, unrelated question. That is not how it works. It gives a completely wrong idea of the real thing. The reality? Oh, it's completely different. A real examiner isn't passive at all. They are an active, highly trained interviewer. They don't just ignore what you're saying, quite the opposite. They actually adapt their questions based on your answers to create a real, natural conversation. So you've really got to understand an examiner's job is, well, it's complex. They are managing the clock super strictly, they're controlling the whole interaction, and get this, they're actually trained to spot and shut down those rehearsed, memorized speeches. They are listening carefully the entire time for evidence they can use to score you. Your score is being decided throughout the whole test, not just at the end. And that brings us perfectly to our second huge myth, and this one is a biggie. It's the idea that there's some kind of secret formula, a trick you can use to magically get a high score. I'm sure you've heard this one, right? Just use as many idioms as possible, or prepare these long, super impressive answers for common topics. Everyone says it, but does it actually work? Okay, look at it this way. Think of one of those strength tester games at a fair. Every single question the examiner asks is a new chance for you to swing that hammer and show how strong your English is. A real, spontaneous answer? That's you hitting the bell. Ding! But a memorized, learned answer? That's like swinging and missing the target completely. Whoosh! The examiner literally has to ignore it. And boom, you've just wasted a golden opportunity to get points. And this is the trap so many people fall into after watching those online mock tests. They see someone get a high score, they notice they used a bunch of idioms, and they think, the idioms are the secret. But that's getting it completely backwards. The high score came from their overall communication skills. The idioms were just a small part of it if they were even used correctly. It wasn't because of a few fancy phrases. The difference between a fake mock test and the real thing is just night and day. In those mock tests, you see candidates giving these long, boring mini lectures. But in a real interview, the candidate answers the question directly, and then the examiner follows up naturally with something like, "Oh, interesting, why do you think that is?" It's a real back-and-forth conversation, not a series of one-sided speeches. All right, so if it's not about secret tricks and memorized formulas, then what is it about? Let's pull back the curtain and look at the real blueprint. We're talking about the official scoring criteria. This, right here, is what really, truly matters. Believe it or not, your entire score comes down to just 4 things. That's it. You've got fluency and coherence, lexical resource, which is basically your vocabulary, grammatical range and accuracy, and finally, pronunciation. Each one is worth an equal slice of the pie, 25% of your final score. Okay, let's break that first one down, fluency and coherence. Now, this is not about speaking super fast without taking a breath. Not at all. It's about how easily your ideas flow. And this is the super important part, how easy it is for the examiner to follow you. Do your ideas connect together logically? Are you making sense? So let's look at an example. This is from a Band 6 answer, and you can really hear the struggle with cohesion. Listen to the repetition. They found, and the way they have to correct themselves. The ideas are kind of fuzzy, right? It's just hard to follow. As a listener, you really have to work to figure out what they mean.
Okay, now contrast that with this. This is a Band 7 answer. It's so much clearer. See how the ideas are linked together smoothly? Using simple connectors like the disadvantages are that. The language is clear, the point is sharp, and you get it instantly. That is great coherence right there.
All right, next up, lexical resource, or in plain English, your vocabulary. And listen, the two most important words here are accurately and appropriately. This is not a contest to see who can use the biggest words or the most idioms they just learned yesterday. No, it's about choosing the right word for the job to make your meaning perfectly clear. So, what's the difference between a pretty good score and a really great one here? It all comes down to one thing: clarity. At Band 6, yeah, you can talk about stuff, but your meaning gets a bit muddy because of some word choice errors. But once you get to Band 7 and higher, your meaning is crystal clear. You're also great at paraphrasing, finding different ways to say something instead of just repeating yourself. So the big takeaway for vocabulary is super simple. Forget about memorizing long lists of idioms. Instead, focus on learning words in context so you actually know how to use them correctly. And honestly, this whole idea of clear communication applies to everything else too. For grammar, it's about using a variety of sentences correctly. And for pronunciation, it's not about sounding like a native speaker. It's just about being easy for someone to understand. Okay, so we've busted some pretty big myths. Now what? What's the actual path to success? Well, it's all about making one crucial shift in your thinking. You need to move away from performing and move towards genuine, real communication. So let's do a quick recap of myth versus reality. It's not about speaking fast and long. It's about speaking coherently so your ideas are clear. It's not that your ideas don't matter. They absolutely do. They have to be relevant. The score isn't decided in just one section. The examiner is assessing you the whole time. And please, it is not about memorizing fancy words. It's about building a wide vocabulary that you can actually use.
When you boil it all down, this is the single most important thing to remember. The IELTS speaking test is not some kind of magic show. It isn't designed to see if you can pull some fancy linguistic tricks out of a hat. It's designed to do one thing: find out how well you can actually communicate in English. That's it. And so, that leaves us with one last really crucial question for you to think about as you prepare. Are you spending your time preparing to just pass a test, or are you preparing to truly communicate? Think about it. Because one of those paths leads to a score, but the other, that one leads to real, lasting success.